Hi, Lee Colan here. I'm glad you could join us today. I'm really excited to have an opportunity to interview a good friend of mine, a mentor, a best-selling author, and a CEO of Cornerstone Leadership Institute. It's David Cottrell. David, thanks for being here today. Appreciate that, pal. Appreciate it. Well, you may have seen our last interview with Zig Ziglar, and we thought we'd just kind of carry on down the line of people that are really accomplished in their careers and just have them share some of our wisdom with us. So I appreciate you joining us today. David, your perennial best-selling book, Monday Morning Leadership, has really positively influenced literally hundreds of thousands of leaders. What a blessing for them, and certainly a blessing for you. Can you share a little bit about how that book came about?
Well, first of all, thanks for your kind comments on that book. Cool. The book actually was from a concept from Tuesdays with Morrie. I was on a plane going to Atlanta one time, and I read Tuesdays with Morrie, and I thought, man, you know, we need something like this for the business audience. Cool. And I was, after my conference in Atlanta, I went to Toronto, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with this concept? Mm-hmm. And so I came up with Monday Morning Leadership. Mm-hmm. And the way that the book was arranged was I took the 8 common elements that every leader has a challenge with. Mm-hmm. And I began the book with those 8 elements. And it flowed like a river. It literally was a godsend, cool. This particular book. And when I was writing the book, I would put people in there that were my family members and other people that I had known along the way. For instance, Karen, the boss in the book, was my wife, obviously. My daughter Jennifer was in the book. My daughter Kim was in the book, and Michael was in the book, and my first manager was in the book. And so I had all these people in there that I could relate to as I was flowing the book out. But in that weekend in Toronto, the book was 90% finished. Wow. When I went home. It was unbelievable. It was literally a godsend. And then when I got home, I thought, well, I've got something great here. Nobody wanted it in the traditional publishing world. And so I wound up self-publishing it myself, and thank God that happened. Sure. And it's been the catalyst for my whole business since then.
Awesome. Yeah. And you may well know that there's a whole Monday morning series now of Monday morning mentoring and Monday morning motivation, Monday morning choices, and they've all done very well and had lots of positive impact for lots of people. You know, one of the things I like most about you, David, and yet lots of things, but one of the things I really like is that you really walk your talk. You know, it's easy to write this stuff, but it's one thing to try to live it also, right? Yeah. And so I really appreciate that about you. In fact, one of David's quotes, is one of my favorites, is that the definition of integrity is never being ashamed of your own reflection. I love that. Think about that. Integrity is never being ashamed of your own reflection. So I was wondering if you could just share with us what you think one of the kind of the role is of integrity for today's leader in today's world, David.
Well, I think that there's plenty of examples of how integrity have destroyed companies, and destroyed people, and destroyed careers and everything else. You know, it all begins and ends really with integrity. If people don't trust you, what difference does it make what you tell them? Right. If they don't trust you, why should they take a risk with you? And most people, when they go to work for someone, they're entrusting the biggest thing that they have, which is their time, their energy, their careers. The amount of time spent there is far more than they spend at home. Sure. And so if you lose your integrity with anyone, the byproduct of that is losing their trust. So if you lose your integrity, you lose trust. If you lose trust, you can't develop people. Right. So if you're not developing people, you won't have followers. If you don't have followers, you've got nobody to lead anyway. So it really all begins right there. Do you say, or do you do what you say you're going to do? And can you be dependent upon? And are you a person that I'm willing to put my career and my trust in? And so anytime you have the slightest integrity mistake somewhere along the way, it takes you a long time to recover from that. So I think we need to guard our integrity like we would our most precious possession that we have, because that's exactly what it is.
Cool. Good deal. There you have it. I have nothing to expound on that. That's awesome. Perfect. Thanks, David. Appreciate it. I wonder if you could just share with us who some of your, maybe just one of the most important role models or mentors have been in your career, David.
Well, I've had several mentors along the way, but the person with the most influence from a mentoring perspective, I've had great bosses. I've worked for wonderful people. But many years ago, someone put me in touch with a gentleman named Fred Smith. Not Fred Smith from FedEx, who I knew and worked for as well, but Fred Smith, an author here in Dallas. And Fred Smith became a mentor for me. And he was the toughest guy I've ever been around. And he was so tough because he told me the truth. And one thing that he told me, he says, you know, all of this input that you're getting are from people who won't tell you anything other than really what you want to hear, because they're your friends. They don't want to hurt your feelings and all of this. And he told me the truth. And from that experience, working with him through a series of mentoring experiences, I learned that really the hardest thing that we have as leaders is to figure out what the truth really is, because it's filtered so much.
Yeah, that's right.
And the last time I saw Mr. Smith, he's been dead for a few years now, but the last time I saw him, one of the highlights of my life really was he was in his wheelchair, and he says, "I'm very proud of you." And that was a great deal for me, because he was so tough on me all the way through.
Good for you. That's neat.
He was a wonderful man.
That's neat.
Yeah.
You know, I've always said that the definition of a true friend is someone who's willing to tell you what you really don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a good mentor.
That's right.
Good for you. Good for you.
That's right.
Well, you know, we were in this chair. Someone else was in this chair not too long ago. Zig Ziglar. We're in the Ziglar studios right now, and you know, thinking of mentors and people, the kind of role models.
Yeah.
Zig's certainly one of them for me, and I know for lots of people. And I just wonder if you could maybe share your favorite Zig quote with us.
Sure. Well, my experience with Zig goes way back.
Really?
I remember in I believe it was 1978.
Wow.
I was a manager for Xerox back then, and I got a hold of this book called "See You at the Top." And that book literally changed my life, because I was able to see how personal development could make a difference and really separate us from the other people who were trying to do the same things that we were. And so I bought the book, See You at the Top, way back then. I've still got that original copy. I think it's $5.95 was the hardcover copy of that. And when my son graduated from college in the spring, one of the things that I got for him was the 25th anniversary of
cool.
See You at the Top, and I had Zig sign it for him as well.
Neat.
And so that was a great deal for me. I think it was $25 on that particular copy, but a lot's changed. But to sum up, you know, all of his teachings in one quote is very difficult, but the one quote that really makes a difference for me, that has all of my life, is that he said something to the effect of, you can have everything in life you want. You can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want.
Absolutely.
And you know, I have found that to be true. I don't think that anybody can outgive. You know, the more that we give, the more we're going to get back. And it sounds sort of corny, but it's an absolute truth. And Zig taught me that.
Really?
Yeah, through his writings and teachings from many years ago. What a wonderful man.
That's great. That's my favorite quote also. In fact, when he sat here, I made Zig say that quote to me just so I could hear from him. Yeah.
I hope he said it the same way I did. I hope I didn't misquote him. But
you did perfect. You know, a couple years ago, one of the books that was published under your label, Cornerstone Leadership Institute, was called The Best Leadership Advice I Ever Got.
Yep.
You were nice enough to ask me to contribute one of the pieces of advice I got when I was kind of going through my career. And the one was when I was in graduate school, one of my professors said, you know, Lee, the secret to success is not being able to know everything, but it's being able to plug up your ignorance within 24 hours. And that was a big relief for me, because it made me realize that it was really about being resourceful, not necessarily having the burden of having to know everything at the moment. And you know, now that 24 hours is probably down to 3 hours with all the technology and stuff, but that was just really helpful to me. So I was just going to ask you, you know, what's the best leadership advice you've ever got?
Well, that was some great advice. Whoever gave you that gave you. I think the best advice would come from my father, who was my role model, and you know, he's been gone for several years now. But the one thing, anytime I would have an issue with whatever my organizational issue was, or whatever my people issue was, or whatever, I would go to him and I would tell him what it was, and he would always ask me one question. And he says, well, what's the right thing to do?
There you go.
I hated that question coming back at me, but as I look back, I mean, it's the most profound question that you can really have, is what is the right thing to do? You take out all the muddle and you look at it, what's the right thing to do? If Madoff had people asking that question, maybe things have been a little bit different. Or going back to the integrity issue that we talked about earlier, maybe things would be different in Enron and other places. But if you can just answer the question, what's the right thing to do? And look yourself in the mirror and say, I know that I'm doing the right thing. Then you can move forward. And I think that's the best advice. He really didn't give me that as an advice. He gave it to me as a question.
He modeled it.
What's the right thing to do?
That's great.
So that's where it came from. In fact, I use that in one of my chapters in Monday Morning Leadership.
Really? Terrific. Good deal. Good deal. Well, shifting to kind of a personal note now, is there kind of a surprising fact that maybe your readers and audiences might not know about you, something you might be willing to share with us now?
Well, I guess the most surprising fact, and it's not a surprise to me, and I don't think it's a surprise to you because you know this, but a lot of people will look at you where you are and assume that you were always sort of there. You know, they don't look at at the body of work that got you to where you were.
Sure.
Well, maybe the surprising fact for some people in your audience would be that I was almost broke. I took off on my own, and things didn't go the way that they were, outlined to go. I had a wonderful business plan, but it just didn't work.
Yeah, right.
And I almost was broke at one time. Wow. And I was literally down to within months of going back to corporate America. And one person, Mark Layton in this particular instance, stood up, and he provided me the opportunity to sustain myself while other things were happening as well, and it allowed me to continue growing. But the thing that I want to tell people who are maybe interested in how I got to where I'm at is that I literally was almost at the end. And having the perseverance just to hang in there long enough to win was the one thing that provided me what I needed to continue to go. And I don't think any of that was accidental. I don't think I could have gotten there without being, at the bottom, and literally I could feel the rock on the bottom of the pond there. But that's something that most people don't look at now because they just see where you're at.
Sure. Yeah. It's amazing to me that most stories of success, even the greatest stories of success, if you really look back like you did, I mean, they were close somewhere.
There's a point. Yeah, there's a point somewhere along the way where you reach a crossroads.
That's right. Yeah.
And you've got to go one way or the other. And I was fortunate that I was provided an opportunity to go the direction that I went.
Great, good deal. I always say too that we never achieve success alone. We achieve it with lots of help of others along the way, and there's always people kind of helping us, maybe turning a stumbling block into a stepping stone. It kind of really creates a defining moment for us.
That's true.
Good for you. Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, David and I had an opportunity to co-author a book earlier this year called "Winners Always Quit." We had some fun doing that. So, David, I was wondering if you could share with us maybe one thing you think that today's leaders should quit doing to be more successful tomorrow.
Well, I think that book has a lot of good ideas, and I love that book. But one thing that I think in that book that means more to me, and everybody looks at it a little bit differently, but one of the things I think that we need to quit is being interested and start being committed. A lot of people are interested in being successful.
Sure.
A lot of people are interested in doing whatever. In fact, January the 1st, when it rolls around, you're going to find that all of the health clubs are full.
That's right.
Because these people are interested in making changes. They're interested in toning their bodies and losing the weight and all that kind of stuff. Being interested, though, doesn't get you anything.
Right.
It's the people who are there in July, that are the ones that are committed. And I think there's a big difference between being interested and being committed. When you're committed, it's a no matter what type of deal, because things are not going to be easy.
Yeah.
When you're interested, it's not a no matter what. And when things become not so easy, then you sort of, drop off or whatever.
Right.
But that's the one thing in that book. Although I think every chapter in that book has some really good ideas in it.
Good
deal.
That's not,
I like that book.
No bias at all, right?
I like the book. Yeah.
So you got that. Quit being interested and be committed. Good deal. Good deal. So is there anything that today's success-minded professional should never quit doing?
Well, I think there's one thing that I build my business on, and so do you, and that's we should never quit learning. One of the things that I have discovered along the way is that the people who are dedicated to learning, the people who are dedicated to doing the things to get to the next level continually, are the ones that will get there.
Right.
And a lot of people don't want to pay that price.
Right.
And I tell people if they'll just read a book a month, just a book a month, which is about a half a chapter a day, which is about 10 minutes a day, you do that and you can literally change your life.
Right.
Because in 5 years from now, if you're looking for a job that you've started preparing for today, you've read 60 books on that particular subject, you become a lot more valuable than you would have been if you hadn't done that.
Right.
So it's never quit learning. And one of the things I tried to teach my children, and I think it's the most important thing we can teach all of our children, is that the more you learn, the more you earn.
There you go.
It's very simple. You become more valuable.
Right.
You have more experiences to share. You have more of what people need because you have learned more. And if you quit learning at your last level of education, you're going to lose eventually because people are going to pass you up. The more you learn, the more you earn. And I think that's what we all need to keep doing all of our lives, no matter where you are.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. There you go. A learner is an earner and a leader. There you go. Excellent. Thanks, David. listen, as prolific as you are, we know you always have something going on. You've authored over 25 books. Cornerstone Leadership's always pumping out something new. Great resources, whether it's posters and note cards and desktop prints and audios and lots of training products to support the books. So I know there's something on the plate now. So you can share with us what your next project is?
Well, in December we have a book coming out called Time.
Cool.
That's the simple name of the book, is Time. And the original book that I'm taking off of was 175 Ways to Get More Done in Less Time. And so I'm taking that and creating a book in a little different fashion, where it starts off with the first thing in the morning and it goes through a work day till you go home at night. And what you can do differently to get more done in less time and be more productive so that you have more time back at the house with your spouse or your friend or whoever, to be more, to spend time doing more of what you want to do, as opposed to just being driven by the work or whatever, the schedule. So anyway, the name of the book is Time, and I think it can make a big difference in a lot of people if they just take a couple of suggestions, make those suggestions, save 5 minutes a day, and then all of a sudden you've got something that you can give back to your family.
That's huge. We live in this information-rich, time-poor world, so to the extent that we can get a little more time out, it can make a difference. Just that little bit of difference makes a big difference.
There you go.
There you go. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, you can learn more about David and Cornerstone Leadership at cornerstoneleadership.com. Again, he has lots of great resources out there, and again, keep learning, keep earning, keep winning. David, I wanted to thank you for your time today.
Thank you,
Really
Lee.
appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Okay?
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Have a great day, guys.